What's up guys, No Life here. Today here to start a new video series going over every character in the game and, you know, giving some suggestions as to like how I would change them and all of that in order to make them more balanced. So this is going to be the first video that I do. Yeah, I'll go over some general overviews, what the goal is for like each of these changes, some changes that are going to affect most of the roster, as well as tuning changes all in this video, so that way I don't have to mention them all every time I do a character video. Anyway, to start, I will mention how I'll be formatting these videos. This video in particular will be a little different because it's discussing tuning and other changes, but for each of the characters, they will be getting their own video, and it will be structured as follows. The first section will be me discussing some things about the character that I don't like, either because it doesn't make sense with the design relative to other characters, or just is simply too strong, too weak, or whatever. It'd just be me talking about how the character fails in certain ways, and yeah. The second section will be me suggesting changes to these characters in order to hopefully fix all the issues I mentioned in the first section, as well as, you know, some other changes that may not have been directly addressed, but could very well just be things that are weird about the character, you know, some things I didn't directly mention. For example, something that probably won't get mentioned in the first section, but would get mentioned in the second, would be something like Nejure's Alpha, because each time you fire this, it hits 3 times, but it knocks down after 8 shots, meaning your last shot will only get 2 hits. So a small change regarding that in order to make sure the last shot gets all 3 hits as well. That would probably be something that's only mentioned in the second section and not really brought up well in the first section. Anyway, the third section would be suggesting some changes of where I would go from there. What changes would I make after I'm done with, you know, after I've made these changes? How would I go about changing them if they were still too strong or still too weak? You know, that one will change depending on each video, of course, but generally it'll just be suggesting a few edits to the character for what I would do after the second section has already been done, if the second section didn't achieve my goal, which I guess this would mean this is a good spot to mention my overall goal. I want every character to be around the same level of viability of current day Strike Bakugo. This is a very solid character, just has a, you know, strong alpha, not overtuned significantly. He has a good amount of ammo on his skills, I feel like. He doesn't feel too spammy, except for maybe his alpha a little bit. And his mobility is good, but nothing fantastic. Strike Bakugo, in my opinion, is the perfect medium of where the balance should be in this game. Now, he will have some own changes dedicated to him. He's not going to be completely left alone. But the goal is to try to make most of the cast around his level. There is another sub-goal that will be mentioned. Characters that don't require a lot of skill will likely be left a little bit worse. Like Tech Denki, for example, due to the ability to not needing to aim with him, he will likely intentionally be made slightly worse than the rest of the cast. While some characters that do take a lot more skill than the rest of the cast, would be a good example of this. Let's say like Monoma would probably be pretty good. Let's say like Assault Kendo, for example. Assault Kendo is a character with very low movement and, you know, very high damage output. That would probably be changed a little bit, but she has a lot of very interesting techs about her that make her fun to use. And the ideal would be to try and make this character a little bit stronger than the rest of the cast, but only if you know how to make use of all these techs. If you're not alpha gliding, for example, you wouldn't be much better than the average character. You wouldn't be any better. You'd be about on par with most of them. If anything, you'd be a little bit worse. The idea behind this is to try and reward players who want to get good at a skilled character, rather than letting people simply turn their brain off, because if everybody's equal, then why would you do anything other than free punch that tracks and hits every time? You know? If that makes any sense. I don't want to reward players for playing cheesy characters and simple characters, so they will intentionally be made a little bit worse, while some of the more higher skill characters that take more effort to use will be made a little bit better. Anyway, The overall goal, though, is to put Strike Bakugo right in the middle of the cast, or like where current day Strike Bakugo is, and put every character within at least a 1-tier range of him. I don't want there to be more than 3 tiers on any tier list after I'd be done with all of these changes. That is my overall goal. It probably won't succeed, so there will probably be a lot more of, you know, the third section coming into play with some of these characters. But that's the end goal behind it all, and I want to try and discuss this, you know, balance idea as much as I possibly can. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say regarding the, you know, the system I'm going to be using. So instead, let's hop into the more generalized changes. First off, the Strike role type and the Assault role type will have their passive benefits reduced. The Strike role type and Assault role type will both now follow a 2% for one character of that role type on your team, 5% for having 2 characters of that role type on your team, and 10% for having 3 characters of that role type on your team. The current values are 5, 10, and 20%. I'm simply reducing those down so that way Triple Strike doesn't result in full bullet alphas doing like the 140 range. It's very oppressive to deal with, and as such, will be toned back. Of course, full bullet will receive his own changes when the time comes. The second change, or the second like more universal change that I'll be mentioning, is a general increase in HP. The devs have already started doing this, with the HP now following a different philosophy. 350 now generally means the average character. This is where your average beamer is. They usually have decent mobility, decent survivability. This is where your average character is. So 300 will now follow a different philosophy. 300 will now focus on characters with other ways of surviving, to having, you know, really durable shields, permeation, or really good mobility. This will also generally include characters that have rapid levels of movement, but generally having windows in their kit. Like Ochako. This is a window to attack her. If there's too many of these, then the character will likely be given 300. The only characters that will remain at 250 are characters with very safe ways of playing the game, such as Rapid Bakugo. This character doesn't have a dedicated window of when to hit him. He kind of just flies above you, and while he will get his own changes, 300 HP will not be one of them. Some other prominent examples of this will be like Rapid Mirio. He will be going up to 250, but he will probably be staying there, as this character has a lot of permeation, mobility, and, you know, general survivability in the rest of his kit. I think he should be encouraged to have to use those rather than simply surviving any hit that takes his way. That is my goal. However, most characters, including a lot of Rapids, will go up to 300, and some Rapids may even go up a little higher than that. Though I wouldn't count on it. It would probably mainly be like twice. Twice is barely a Rapid, let's be real, chat. Anywho, this also comes with the next thing that I will mention. HP values of 450 and 500 will be added to the game. It isn't really fair to characters like Assault Kirishima for him to remain at the current cap of 400 when a character who honestly is almost just as good as him at close quarters, like say, Strike Shoto, only has 50 less. That's normally what Kiri's job is supposed to be, being a very durable frontline character. However, due to the general increase in HP, he doesn't feel much more durable than your average beamer. This would be changed. A lot of these 400 HP characters will have their HP increased to 450 and sometimes even 500 in order to give them that sustain back from the average character. The average character will be put at 350 now, and 300 will mean, you know, high mobility. 400 will generally mean characters with mediocre mobility and a lot of frontline ideas, like Assault All Might, for example, would probably go up to 300, or not 300, 400, because he has a lot of lag on his moves. As I'm sure you can see, his range is rather short, and he has a big hitbox. Noting this, he would probably end up going up to 400. Kind of ironic, isn't it? So with this in mind, many characters actually would not have their HP values reduced. The only one that I can think of that will probably have his HP value reduced would be Armored Might, but we'll get to him when his video comes around. I'm sure he'll probably won't have this HP by this time his video drops. He also has plenty of other changes in mind for him. I would also like to mention that there will be a new feature added called minimum ammo cost required to use this skill. A bit convoluted, I know. But like Armored Might, for example. This is a pretty good example, as he'll probably be one of the characters that gets it. This dash right here costs 80%. However, it's very flawed, because you can use this even at 6% and get the full dash. So some characters, like Armored Might, would have a minimum applied to how little or how much ammo they can have, how much ammo they need in order to even be able to use the skill in the first place. So for example, in Armored Might's case, I would make this dash require a minimum of like 50%. So if you did it right here, you'd get the reloading signal, but if you did it right here, it would put it at 0 and you'd be able to do it. This way it would simply prevent, you know, infinite spam with a lot of these percentage moves, and hopefully make them, you know, less BS. Though I will say this will likely be applied very rarely to characters. This won't be something I use all the time, and I'll try to avoid using it in almost any scenario possible. But in a case like Armored Might, you kinda need a situation like this in order to prevent double dash. This is really stupid, shouldn't really exist. Anyway, moving on. The minimum cost thing, yeah, that'll be added. I think that's about it. I think it's about time to just get on with tuning. I think I've discussed everything else that I plan on doing. So let's go with tuning. The first tuning change that will receive a change is Space Hop. Space Hop will have its complete function reworked. It will still contain the same neutral jump that we're all used to. This will still be exactly the same. However, it will now have a cooldown in place. Its duration will instead be all game, regardless of what level it is, with the level now affecting its cooldown. At level 1 Space Hop, your cooldown will be 60 seconds. At max level, your cooldown will be 10 seconds. Another important note is that this cooldown will not end, or will not begin, until you touch the ground after a jump. This way, for example, certain characters, like Rapid Bakugo, can't do things like this. They get super high in the air with their Space Hop jump, air stall a little bit, air stall a little bit. It would begin reloading here. That way they can't just simply go back in the air again after touching the ground. It would function a lot like the rest of his skills, for example. Like his beta, for example. Look at this. No matter how much I stay in the air for, his beta will never recharge. It will function a lot like this. But the second I land, the cooldown starts. It will function using that same philosophy. Now, for another change, acceleration. I don't think I have it on anyone. Oh, I do. All Might. I'll use him to showcase acceleration. This duration is rather excessive. Oh, I can't even show you guys the duration. W game. But this duration is rather excessive. I'll just let you guys know. I'll give you the numbers. It's 30 seconds at all levels. This duration is incredibly excessive. Makes the acceleration users feel really tough to fight. However, its cooldown is also rather long to compensate this, being 40 seconds and 20 seconds at levels 10 and 11 respectively. So, in order to make this skill feel less, you know, awful to fight, I will be cutting its duration in half. It will be 15 seconds at all levels. Now, in exchange, its cooldown will also be cut in half. Its 40-second cooldown will go down to 20 seconds at level 10, and at level 11, its cooldown will go down to simply 10 seconds. This way, you could proc the skill more often if your character more consistently goes in for melees. However, it won't be up for as long, so you can't abuse it for like entire fights, for example. Waiting it out becomes an option that a lot of characters can now perform. This was a change that I'm generally pretty happy with. Now, next change. PU Turbo. I think I have it on my Rapid Deku. The PU gain from PU Turbo will be increased from 5% to 80%, or not 80%, 8%. Not 80. Not 80. Ignore me being bad. Why am I getting 10? Okay, whatever. Just it will be 8% per down. Currently, PU Turbo is supposed to act as an in-between between wall run and PU, and currently it doesn't really do that well. The PU duration is quite long, so if this ended up being too much of a buff, I would focus on nerfing the PU duration down to like 30 seconds instead of the current 50. But for the most part, I think the skill just needs a buff to be more competitive, so it will be given this following buff. Its PU gain will be increased from 5% to 8%. Nothing special, but should hopefully make it a bit more viable. Indestructible. I don't think I have a character to show off Indestructible. Indestructible will be completely reworked. Indestructible will now function like other guard break related tunings, such as electrification. Now, upon guard breaking the opponent, you will gain the indestructible effect for 20 seconds. Is this kind of a lot? Maybe. And that would probably be the first thing that was nerfed if it ended up being too much. But you would gain the indestructible effect, and afterwards, after Indestructible was over, it would go on a cooldown. The cooldown would follow the same ones as Space Hop, being 60 seconds and 10 seconds, or 60 seconds through 10 seconds, depending on level. That would generally be the cooldown. Yeah. Sisterly Disposition and Iron Fist. Both of these tuning skills will be receiving a rework, for the most part, buff, however. I don't think I have anyone to showcase out of these. Actually, I do have one for Sisterly. Hold on. Sisterly. A lot of these changes will apply over to Iron Fist as well, so just keep that in mind. The duration is now increased. Currently, it is 10 seconds. I would increase it to 20. My main issue with Sisterly currently is that after actually landing the melee, you don't really have a lot of time to actually abuse it properly. The second change that I would make is for Sisterly's defense amount to go from 30% to 20. I think this would follow, a bit better with the current Iron Fist amounts that I will be giving it as well. I'm reducing the amount of percent in exchange for more duration. Its cooldowns will also follow the same ones as Space Hop, being 60 seconds at level 1 and 10 seconds at level 11. Iron Fist will have all of those same changes applied, both the duration and the cooldown. However, Iron Fist will be a 10% damage buff. It's currently at 5, so Iron Fist will be getting up to 10. This might make it compete with Embrittlement a bit more, and hopefully make Iron Fist an option that's actually worth considering in some scenarios. Critical Permeation. Critical Permeation will be receiving a nerf. Critical Permeation, if you now attempt to pop a healing item during Critical Permeation, your Permeation will end. This will go from any drinks, including like team stuff.
What's this?
It will also account for team enhancement kits. Level cards won't proc it, however, and ability cards will not pop it. Revive cards, however, will. Anything that requires you to spend a moment sitting still and using an item. All of these will now end the effects of Critical Permeation early, and you will no longer be invincible during these effects. Reinforced Revive will be getting a nerf. Reinforced Revive now goes down to 125 GP and 150 GP, depending on level, for levels 10 and 11. All the in-between levels will have their values changed to match these new scaling better. Yeah, generally, I think Reinforced Revive is too much of a mandatory option on all the Revive characters in the game, and is a significant part in their viability. I don't want to completely kill it, as otherwise instant revive moves like that would become really bad. However, at the same time, there's no denying how absolutely impossible it is to fight the same person and kill them, and then have to fight them again at pretty much full HP and full GP because their teammate has Reinforced Revive. This is doubly worse when the opponent has multiple Reinforced Revives to work with, so it often means that you kind of have to target the revive first in every situation. That will usually remain true, but now it's just a little less punishing if you don't, as you can now fight back against the opponent a bit better, as they won't have full GP and half their HP. And finally, all revenge tunings will have a 10-second cooldown. No other changes will be made to these currently. The duration of rapid and tech might go up, but for the most part, they would remain the same. That's the end of the video today. Sorry for the quick cut. Yep. Thank you. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow with Yellow Deku. Peace.